I've got the cash, let's go buy a rally car. Whoa, easy Tiger. Let's make sure you're not buying a lemon.
How do I become a rally driver? I'm Carl from Rally Action, and I'm going to answer the question.
So where do you find a rally car for sale? Well, the best place to start is asking at your car club. Often some of the best buys aren't advertised. You can also get online. In Australia and New Zealand, my105.com is a pretty handy resource. Or you never know, you might find your car on Gumtree. Wherever you get your leads from, you then need to do your homework. Before you contact the seller, ask around at your car club or within the sport and see who knows the history of the car. Things like when it was built and by who, specs, how well it's been maintained, and what the current owner's been doing with it. This info will give you an idea if it's worth contacting the seller or whether you choose to keep looking. If everything sounds pretty good so far, then you can contact the seller and go look at the car. You need to take a few things with you, and one of those is somebody who knows about rally cars. They're very different from a normal road car. Before getting your hands dirty on the car, the first thing to ask for is the logbook. In most places in the world, the governing authority will issue a logbook for the car. The logbook will contain details of the car, the owner, competition history, and perhaps a record of accident damage as well. If the car doesn't have a logbook issued for it, walk away. You could be ending up with a whole bunch of problems. Right, let's start taking a look at the car. Let's get under the skin and start looking at structural stuff. I don't mean removing panels, but we do need to look in structural places. Have a look at places where the suspension mounts to the car, underneath, inside the engine bay, and throughout the rear end. You're looking for rust, crumpled or buckled sections, and or split seams, like these ones in the photos. This is a surefire way to tell if the car has been in an accident or had a rough life. So what happens if you find this? Don't see it yet? Let's make it a bit easier. It's called seam welding, and if you find it all over the car or around the structural points and seams, it's a good thing. This is what it looks like without all the paint. And this is how extensive it can be. We'll cover more about seam welding in the next episode. Take a look at the roll cage next. It's the single most important safety item fitted to the car. It's integral to the structure and rigidity of the car. All cages will have a minimum of 6 points. Front, centre, and rear. Many cages will have more than 6 points, particularly if it is a tower-to-tower welded-in cage. This type of design is very strong and can help the body shell of the car survive some very heavy shunts. You do, however, have to check the cage carefully. Look for signs of cracked paint that could indicate that bars have bent or moved. Check around all the attachment points, all the welds, and around the roof. Any damage, walk away. It's not worth your life. A few last tips. If the cages bolt in, check to make sure all the correct bolts and nuts have been used and that they're all tight. Also at the attachment points to the body shell, check that backing plates have been used to help secure the cage in properly. With weld-in cages, check all the tubes are fully welded, especially in the places that are hard to reach. We've seen a few cages where the welding has only been completed where you can actually see. Now we can take a look at the suspension, and for this you're going to need to jack the car up and remove the wheels. You're looking for bent or damaged components, split boots, drive shaft problems, etc. Have a visual of springs and dampers. You're looking for oil leaks, worn parts, corrosion, or parts that are seized or bent. Also find out the brand of suspension and when it was last serviced. While you're at it, slip a jack under each corner of the suspension and jack it up to full compression and then let it down to full droop. Make sure it travels through its full range of movement easily. If there are noises or knocks, you need to investigate further. If the car has not been cleaned properly after each rally, or it's been sitting for a long time on its wheels, the suspension may also be partially seized. You can also check out ball joints, tie rod ends and bushes to make sure there's no excessive movement. While the wheels are off, it's also a good idea to check out the brakes. Also find out what type of brakes are fitted to the car. Often rally cars have different brakes. It'll make it easier when you have to get replacement parts. If you're pretty happy with everything so far, then it's time to move on to the engine bay. Check with the seller on what mods have been done to the engine or what performance parts have been fitted. We will also compression test and oil pressure test the engine as well. Also check engine and transmission mounts, as it's not uncommon for these to be broken. Also ask the seller how often the engine's been serviced and what type of oil and parts have been used. If the car's got carburetors fitted, check these out very carefully. Look at all the seals and grommets to make sure they're not perished. Rebuilding a set of carburetors can be an expensive exercise. If the car's fuel injected, find out when the fuel filter and fuel pump was last replaced, particularly if the car's been sitting for a long time. It's often overlooked, and poor fuel pressure and dirty fuel can lead to a blown engine. If the car has aftermarket engine management, find out what type and who's tuned it. The gearbox and driveline. This is a bit of a tricky one. It depends on what type of transmission and differentials have been fitted to the car. You really need somebody that knows about rally cars to help you out with this one, and it will need a test drive. Moving on to the panel work, it's likely you're going to find a few scars. Rally cars do cop the odd scrape, knock or bump, and that will show up in the bodywork. Older cars may have rust in the body in a few spots as well. It's also quite common for a change of colour for a variety of reasons. If any damage has been repaired properly, it should be fine. That of course is up to you to decide when you're looking at the car. Now we'll move into the interior and start with the seats and seat mountings to make sure they're all secure and the seats aren't broken or cracked. Check to make sure the right bolts have been used and that they're all tight. Most rally cars have a fixed seat, so you may find the seat and seating position isn't right for you and will need adjustment, and you may need to put a new seat in. Also check the harnesses and make sure that each piece has a tag. In Australia, CAMS is allowed an extra 5 years after the expiry date on the harnesses for state championship events and below. While you're in there, check the fire extinguishers and or extinguish a bomb if it's got one. And if you need more info, check out our separate videos on harnesses and fire extinguishers. Moving on, check the rest of the interior and ask what all the knobs, switches and buttons are for. If you're happy with everything inside, then there's a few peripherals to look out for. Making sure all the mud flaps are there, the spare wheel tie down and jack, the sump guard or bash plate and any other underbody protection, and also something that's often not thought about, lights. So that's most of the major items covered on the car. What about what you need to actually compete? Ask about spare wheels and also what sort of spares package is available with the car. Also see if there is any tools or equipment that are specific to the car, like sill stands. We've covered a lot in a very short space of time, and this is by no means an exhaustive list of things to check on a used rally car. Hopefully we've covered the big ticket items. If you're still not sure, get an expert to help you out. How much a used rally car is worth depends on the condition of the car, the specifications, what equipment and go-fast bits are in it, how much work the car does or doesn't need to get ready to rally, the market conditions at the time of purchase, and your all-important negotiation skills. Hopefully I've given you some knowledge to head in the right direction. Good luck with the purchase of your first rally car.